He stood alone in a hall built for giants. The war chamber of the Sarathi Empire was larger than any human city dome. Pillars of living crystal rose into darkness, glowing with slow rivers of blue light. The air itself carried a low vibration, like the heartbeat of something ancient and patient. Every species in the interstellar coalition had gathered there, warriors and rulers who commanded fleets strong enough to break planets. And in the middle of them stood one ordinary human soldier. Captain Elias Ward did not look impressive. He wore a simple Terran uniform with no shining armor, no visible weapons, and no genetic enhancements. His hair had begun to turn gray at the edges. A thin scar crossed his jaw, old and pale. Compared to the towering insect-armored Keth, the floating mines of glass from Lear, and the iron-skinned giants of Droven, he looked fragile. Temporary, easy to forget. Many of them tried to forget him. Low murmurs moved through the chamber like wind through dry leaves. Alien voices whispered in languages meant to be private, yet the hall translated everything for all to hear. Too small. Too soft. Why is a human here? They barely survived their own wars. Luck species. Decoration for diplomacy.
None of the words were kind. None of them were quiet.
Elias heard every sentence. He did not react. He stood with his hands folded behind his back, boots planted evenly on the glowing floor, eyes calm and forward. A soldier's stillness. The kind learned after years of standing in places where fear could not be allowed to show. Across the chamber, a commander made of layered chitin clicked his mandibles in open amusement. Another, being of liquid metal, reshaped its surface into something like a smile. Even some neutral species watched with curiosity, the way one might watch a weak animal wander into a storm. At the highest platform, the Coalition Council argued about the coming war. The Void Swarm. Even the name felt cold. No one knew where it began. Systems that reported first contact went silent within hours. Stars dimmed. Planets were stripped of life and matter, left as drifting stone. Fleet sent to investigate never returned. The few fragments of data recovered showed shapes that did not follow known biology or physics. Only hunger and endless multiplication. For the first time in recorded galactic history, the strongest civilizations were afraid. That fear needed somewhere to go. Today, it chose the human. A tall, Droven warlord leaned forward, his stone-like skin grinding softly as he moved. His voice rolled across the hall like distant thunder, explained the purpose of the Terran presence. The translation turned his tone polite. The sound underneath was not. A council scribe answered, "Humanity requested representation. Their border systems may be within the swarm's projected path." Desil. Soft laughter followed. "Maybe," another commander said. "Then evacuate them." "Yes," said a third. "Preserve useful species. Do not waste fleets on the weak." More agreement spread. Calm, logical, cruel. Elias remained silent. Inside, memory moved instead of anger. Burning skies over a colony moon. Civilians boarding ships too slowly. The sound of someone promising rescue even when rescue would never come. He had learned long ago that shouting in rooms like this changed nothing. Patience did. A slender Lear delegate, its body made of clear crystal filled with drifting light, turned toward him. "Human," it said gently. "Do you contest the recommendation of withdrawal?" Now he was required to speak. Elias stepped forward one measured pace. Not dramatic, just enough to show he was present. His voice was simple, steady, and human. No. The answer surprised them. A ripple of confusion moved through the hall. He continued. "Evacuation is reasonable. Civilian safety comes first." Some nodded, satisfied. Weak species accepting truth. order restored. Then he added quietly, "But the swarm will not stop at our borders." Silence returned, thinner this time. "We have studied the fragments," he said. "It follows density, energy, life. If humanity runs, it only meets you sooner." A few commanders shifted. Not agreement, just discomfort at hearing their private thoughts spoken aloud. The Drovan warlord's heavy eyes narrowed. "And what does a single, unenhanced soldier propose?" "Nothing," Elias said. More laughter. Sharper now. "Then why are you here?" someone demanded. He did not answer immediately, not because he lacked words, but because truth deserved the right moment. Before he could speak, a deep tone echoed through the chamber. One note. Pure. Well. Commanding. Every system in the hall fell silent at once. Lights dimmed. The living crystal pillars bent inward slightly, as if bowing to an unseen gravity. The Serathi Queen was arriving. Even the proudest warlords straightened. Conversations died mid-breath. Ancient instincts older than language moved through every species present. Respect. Fear. Something close to worship. The great doors at the far end of the chamber opened without sound. Radiance entered first. Not harsh light, but layered color like sunrise through water. Gold and violet currents flowed around a tall, elegant form, moving with impossible grace. The queen's body was both organic and luminous, armored in patterns that looked grown rather than forged, long translucent limbs folded like wings of glass. A crown of living crystal floated above her head, turning slowly in silent orbit. She was beautiful in a way that made comparison meaningless. Not gentle, powerful, the kind of presence that could end wars, simply by existing. Every species lowered themselves according to their custom, all except one. Elias Ward did not kneel. Not from disrespect. Humans did not kneel to rulers, only to the fallen. He remained standing, calm, still, and very small in the center of the vast chamber. Many noticed. Some felt shock, others anger. The queen walked forward. Each step left fading constellations of light across the floor. The distance from the doorway to the council platform was long, yet no one breathed until she crossed it. She should have turned toward the high seats of power. But she did not. She continued past them, down the central path, toward the human. Confusion spread like cracks in glass. Council members exchanged uncertain looks. Guards tightened their grip on ceremonial weapons. No one understood. Elias watched her approach without moving. Inside his chest, his heart beat a little faster, not from fear, but from the weight of being seen by something ancient. She stopped a single step away. Up close, she was even more unreal. Light moved beneath her skin like distant galaxies. Her eyes held depth that felt older than memory. For a long moment, she simply looked at him. Not at his rank, not at his species. At him. The chamber waited. Then the impossible happened. The Serathi Queen lowered herself. Slowly, deliberately, she knelt before the human soldier. Sound vanished from the universe. No whisper. No breath. No movement. Even machines forgot to hum. Thousands of years of power, pride, and hierarchy shattered in one silent motion. Elias did not step back. Shock flickered through him. But discipline held it in place. Soldiers learned to remain steady even when reality changed shape. Behind him, someone gasped. Another voice tried to speak and failed. The queen bowed her head. When she spoke, her voice carried through every mind in the chamber, gentle and absolute. You will show respect. The words were not loud, yet they felt heavier than gravity. She lifted her gaze, still kneeling. He is your parent. Understanding did not come. Only deeper silence. The statement was too large for thought, too strange for logic. The most powerful being in known space had just declared an ordinary human soldier to be something sacred. Elias felt the world tilt, not outside, but inside memory. Questions rose that had no shape yet. He had come expecting ridicule, arguments, maybe dismissal. Not this. Never this. Across the chamber, the Drovan warlord finally found his voice. It trembled, despite his strength. "Your Majesty!" explain. Others joined, confusion breaking into urgent noise. "This cannot be correct. Humans are newly arrived. Records show no. One look from the Queen ended every protest. She stood slowly, light gathering around her like calm fire. When she faced the council again, the air itself seemed to listen. "The past you know," she said, "is incomplete." Her eyes returned to Elias, softer now, almost grateful. He felt something tighten in his throat, an emotion he could not name. Soldiers were not trained for moments like this. Far beyond the chamber walls, fleets prepared for a war against extinction. Civilizations calculated survival in numbers and probabilities. But here, in the quiet center of power, history itself was beginning to change direction, and the smallest figure in the room had just become the most important. The silence did not break all at once. It cracked, slowly, like ice under deep water. No one in the great hall understood what they had just seen. The Scifi queen, old as empires, powerful enough to command entire star systems with a single thought, had knelt before a human soldier who looked tired from long travel. Even the living crystal pillars seemed frozen in disbelief, their blue light dim and uncertain. Captain Elias Ward remained where he stood, though inside his mind questions moved faster than fear. He had faced enemy fire, failing oxygen, and the long quiet of space between battles, yet nothing in his life had prepared him for this moment. He did not feel proud. He did not feel powerful. He felt like a man who had stepped into the wrong story. Across the chamber, whispers began again, but now they carried confusion instead of mockery. "This is impossible. Some form of ritual? Political theater? The Queen does not kneel." Voices overlapped, growing louder. Order was close to breaking. Then the Queen raised one slender hand. Stillness returned instantly. Not forced, accepted. Her authority was older than argument. "The past you know is incomplete," she repeated, her voice calm but filled with quiet weight. "You measure history by what survived in records. But records burn. Records are lost. Truth does not require memory to exist." Many in the council shifted uneasily. Civilizations built pride on long timelines and perfect archives. The idea that something important had been forgotten felt like weakness. The Drovan warlord spoke again, more carefully now. "If there is truth unknown to us, Your Majesty, we ask to witness it." Curiosity had replaced ridicule. Fear of the void swarm already pressed on every mind. Hidden history could mean hidden hope or hidden danger. The Queen turned slightly, and the air behind her unfolded into light. It began as a thin line, bright as a newborn star. Then it widened into a vast curtain of moving images, suspended above the chamber floor. Serathi memory projection was not simple recording. It carried sensation, emotion, fragments of thought. To watch it was to stand inside the past. Ancient darkness filled the vision. Stars looked different. Fewer mapped routes, fewer signs of advanced life. The galaxy felt younger, wilder, and far more alone. A world appeared, green and bright beneath twin suns. Oceans shone like glass. Vast structures of living crystal grew across continents, beautiful but fragile. "The Sarathi homeworld," the Queen said softly, "before we learned to fight." In the vision, small luminous beings moved through peaceful cities. They were elegant, curious, unafraid. No weapons, no defenses. A civilization that believed beauty would be enough. A shadow entered the sky, not a fleet, not machines, something worse. Space itself seemed to tear open, and shapes poured through, vast, shifting forms that swallowed light. Wherever they passed, color faded. Oceans boiled into nothing. Cities dissolved like dust in fire. Gasps spread through the hall. Even hardened warriors felt cold watching it. "Our first extinction," the Queen said. We did not even understand what was killing us. In the memory, panic replaced peace. Sarathi ships, small and unarmed, tried to flee. Most never reached orbit. Entire continents vanished in silent waves of darkness. "No allies answered our signals," she continued. "No empire came. To the galaxy, we were too distant, too unimportant, too weak." The words echoed painfully close to the insults once thrown at humanity. The vision darkened further. Only a few Sarathi vessels remained, drifting between stars with refugees who believed their species would end within days. Then something unexpected appeared at the edge of the projection. Tiny points of metal and fire. Human ships. They looked crude compared to modern fleets. Simple hulls, visible engines, uneven armor. Nothing about them suggested victory. Nothing suggested they belonged so far from known space. Confusion moved through the council.
"Humans were not starfaring in this era," a delegate whispered. "Your records begin later," the Queen replied.
This was an early journey, lost to you. Not to us. In the memory, the small Terran fleet intercepted Sarathi distress signals. Human voices filled the projection, uncertain, arguing, afraid. They understood the enemy's scale. They knew survival chances were near zero. Some urged retreat. Others spoke of duty. One final voice, calm and steady, ended the debate. "We don't measure help by odds," the human commander said. "We measure it by need." The hall, listening to the memory, grew very quiet. The ancient human ships turned toward the darkness instead of away.
"They chose to stay," the Queen said. "Not because they could win,
but because we could not survive alone." The vision shifted into war. 17 years of running battles burned across star systems. Human vessels struck, retreated, returned again. Each delay bought Sarathi refugees more time to escape, to hide, to learn. Human losses mounted, ships breaking apart in silent explosions, signals cutting off mid-sentence, no surrender messages, no pleas for rescue, only endurance. Many watching the memory felt something unfamiliar, respect. Even species stronger than humanity understood the meaning of a fight continued without hope. The projection showed the final year. Only one Terran ship remained. Scarred. Failing, alone against a darkness large enough to swallow suns. Inside that ship, the human commander recorded a message. His face was older than Elias's, lined with exhaustion yet steady with purpose. Static filled the edges of the image. Power was almost gone. "To the Sarathi," he said quietly. "If this reaches you, it means you're still alive. That's enough." He paused, searching for words that mattered. "Survive, grow stronger than we were. And if you ever meet our descendants, tell them we kept our promise to protect the future." The transmission ended. Moments later, the last human ship vanished into light. Silence returned to the chamber in the present, heavier than before. No one spoke. Even the proudest warriors felt the weight of sacrifice measured in years instead of seconds. The queen lowered her hand, and the ancient vision faded, but its emotion remained. "For thousands of your years," she said, "we searched for any sign of the species that saved us. We found nothing. No colonies, no signals, only absence." Her gaze moved gently to Elias. "Until now." Understanding began to form across the council, slow and fragile. The ridicule from earlier felt distant, almost shameful. The Drovan warlord bowed his head slightly, an honor rarely given.
"You believe this soldier is connected to that commander?"
"I do not believe," the queen answered. "I know." Elias felt every eye turn toward him again, but this time the weight was different.
Not mockery, expectation. He wished, suddenly, that he were still invisible. "I'm just a soldier," he said quietly.
"I didn't know any of this." "We know," the queen replied with calm warmth. "Sacrifice rarely leaves instructions for the future."
A long silence followed. Thoughts moved through the chamber like slow tides. The void swarm still approached. Entire civilizations still faced extinction. Yet something had changed. The past had revealed a truth stronger than fear. Humanity had once stood alone against darkness for strangers. And somewhere in that forgotten fire, a promise had survived. The great hall did not return to normal after the ancient memory faded. Normal no longer existed. Every species present carried the weight of what they had seen. The image of a single human fleet standing against impossible darkness would not leave their thoughts. Pride had filled this chamber before. Now something quieter had taken its place. Uncertainty mixed with respect. Captain Elias Ward wished he could disappear into the glowing floor. He had spent his life avoiding attention, doing his duty, following orders, surviving battles that history would never record. Nothing about him felt worthy of legends from 10,000 years ago. The commander in the memory had looked unbreakable. Elias felt very human, tired, flawed, unsure. Yet the Serati queen still looked at him as if he mattered more than anyone else in the room. That frightened him more than enemy fire ever had. Silence stretched until one of the council scholars finally spoke. The being was small compared to the warriors, its thin body wrapped in floating bands of data light. Its voice carried careful logic. "Ancient gratitude explains reverence for humanity," the scholar said. "But your majesty used a specific word, parent. Such a title suggests more than memory." Many heads turned again. The question had been waiting in every mind. The queen did not answer immediately. Her gaze moved slowly across the chamber, touching each species in turn, as if measuring whether they were ready to hear what came next. "When our scientists understood we might survive," she said at last, "they faced a question deeper than war. How do you thank a species that no longer exists?" No one responded. There was no simple answer. "We could build monuments," she continued softly. "We could preserve recordings, but stone erodes, data fades. Gratitude trapped in history eventually becomes nothing." Her luminous eyes dimmed slightly with old sorrow. "So we chose something that would live." A faint movement of her hand summoned a new pattern of light into the air, smaller than the war memory before. This vision did not show stars or battles. It showed laboratories grown from crystal, filled with fragile Serathi forms, and strange organic machines. "Our greatest minds studied the final transmissions of the human fleet," she said. "Not their weapons, not their engines, their minds, their resilience. Their refusal to abandon strangers, their ability to create bonds stronger than fear." Murmurs of surprise spread quietly. Emotional traits were rarely discussed as science among most advanced species. Power usually came from strength, not compassion.
We discovered something remarkable, the Queen said.
Human neural structures carried patterns we had never evolved. Deep social attachment, protective instinct toward unrelated life, endurance beyond logical survival limits. The Droven warlord frowned. You altered yourselves to resemble them. We preserved what saved us, she corrected gently. In the vision, Scifi scientists worked with delicate care, weaving strands of human genetic code into their own royal lineage, not to change their appearance, not to gain physical power, only to carry forward the capacity to care the way humans had cared for them. It was dangerous, the Queen admitted. Others believed gratitude should not shape biology. What happened? The Crystal Scholar asked. We changed, she said simply. Not weaker, not stronger. More connected. The projection faded, leaving only her voice in the vast chamber. Every Serathi queen since that time has carried echoes of humanity within her mind. We feel loyalty more deeply. We defend allies more fiercely. We remember sacrifice as if it were our own. Her gaze returned to Elias again, warm and steady. That is why the word parent is truth, not metaphor. The meaning settled slowly over the council, like falling snow. Humanity had not ruled the Serathi, had not conquered them, had not even survived to witness their growth. Yet part of humanity lived on inside the most powerful royal line in known space, not through force, through kindness. Elias felt something tighten painfully in his chest. He thought of Earth, crowded cities, endless arguments, small, ordinary lives. Humans rarely saw themselves as noble. They struggled, failed, tried again. To imagine that something beautiful had come from them long before recorded history felt unreal. I didn't earn this, he said quietly. I didn't earn this, he said quietly. The Queen's answer came without hesitation. Inheritance is not earned, it is carried. Before he could respond, another council voice rose. This, one sharper, edged with unease. If Serathi royalty carries human influence, said a tall metallic delegate, then this soldier's presence may trigger biological or political responses. We must confirm the connection is genuine. Suspicion had not vanished entirely. Fear never disappeared so easily. The Queen inclined her head slightly. You seek proof? Yes. Then witness it. She stepped closer to Elias. Light gathered softly around them. Gentle rather than overwhelming. He felt warmth brush against his thoughts. Not invasion, not control. Something like recognition.
Your permission, she said quietly, so only he could hear.
A lifetime of soldier instinct warned him to refuse unknown contact. Something deeper told him this was safe. He gave a small nod. The light brightened. Across the chamber, instruments awakened automatically, translating biological and neural patterns into visible form. Threads of color flowed from the Queen, and from Elias, rising into the air like twin streams. Gasps sounded as the streams touched. They did not clash, they aligned. Shared harmonic structures pulsed through the projection. Ancient markers passed down through unbroken Serathi royal generations, now echoing faintly within human DNA, carried by Elias's bloodline. Probability calculations formed in cold numbers above the light. Lineage connection confirmed. Origin reference, final Terran commander. No one spoke. The truth was no longer story or emotion. It was fact. The metallic delegate lowered its head in silent acceptance. One by one, other council members followed. Not submission, respect freely given. Elias felt the light fade, leaving him standing once more as only a man. But the room no longer saw him that way, and he did not know how to carry that weight. I am not him, he said softly. I'm not the commander you remember. The Queen's expression held gentle understanding. No child is identical to their ancestor, yet the same courage chooses again, in different forms. He had no answer. Far beyond the chamber, warning signals from deep space continued to arrive. The Void Swarm was still coming. History, gratitude, lineage. None of it would matter if the future ended. Perhaps that was why the Queen finally turned from the past. "The reason I revealed this truth is not ceremony," she said, voice growing stronger. "It is preparation. Tension returned instantly. War could not be forgotten for long. The enemy that destroyed our ancient world has returned in another form," she continued. "You call it the Void Swarm. We recognize the pattern of extinction." Cold understanding spread. This was not coincidence. It was continuation. "And this time," she said quietly, "we do not stand alone." Her eyes met Elias's once more, not as ruler to subject, but as descendant to origin. Hope and fear lived together in that single look. Because if humanity had once saved the Sarathi, now the Sarathi would decide whether they were worthy children of that sacrifice.